Let me make it very clear to you. If I'm wrong, please correct me if I'm talking anything wrong. Except that, do we speak English language or do we speak Englishish? This is my question. Because most of us, when we express our thought, we express in English and we feel proud of that. We are talking in a foreign language. We are talking in a language which is alien to us, which is not our first language. Why so called, what we can call that, a pride or honor associated with this language? Is it because of the British colonization, or is it because of English language was important, or is it because it is important nowadays? This is the core questions I want to ask each one of you, and including me. And somewhere, if you think that anything, whatever I'm interacting with you is wrong, then you can also put some courage. You can also correct me if there is any wrong statement made by me. Why we are discussing this? The core question is that, do we speak English language or do we speak Englishish? Because English meaning the England, the language of England, or the language of Great Britain in olden days. But is it language of England, or is it language of all over the world? People whose mother tongue, whose people whose English language is not mother tongue of many people, not a first language of many people. So whether their English should be recognized as a standard English, or shall we call it a colloquial English, or what most of the people call it broken, or so-called broken, or the Dorky Murky English. Why I'm talking about it, and why I'm discussing about it? Because I want to focus on those aspects of language which make us, which bring us some kind of a honor. It is our mentality, it is our perceptions, it is our thinking. Why I'm talking about this language is not important. The thing which I'm saying is more important than any other thing. That is, look at these sentences. I myself is Rameshwar Bor. I have given examinations recently. I have a friend. He was angry on me when I sat on the chair. When I said that chair belonged to me, he also said that his belonged to Aurangabad. And while I was making noise, he said that you should follow the print of silence because it is not you. space. Now look at these sentences. None of this sentence is standard British, standard English expressions or sentence. These are all expressions of Indian English. That is what we call the varieties of Englishes. Our English is a different from British English. British English, it differ not only in terms of some of the expressions, but mostly most of the words are cultural specific, and the meaning of those words are in that culture. In order to understand any language, we need to understand the culture of that society. Otherwise, understanding it is, to some extent or to the larger extent, is hard thing. What I'm saying that most of us feel that we are talking about the language which is alien to us, which is strange to us, which is not, we are not exposed to this language to the greater extent. And if that is the case, then what we should discuss? Shall we say that this language is different for us, or shall we say something different? Why I'm saying this? Because all the time, whatever we are discussing these days are by and large important for us. And here I'm discussing some of the important avenues of culture. Please wait for a while because I'm searching some here, something. That is what I hope that it is visible to every one of you. Sitting over here and talking about its. Oh, this is not the start. English is now the most important language in the world. This might not have been because clear even just 50 years ago, but it cannot reasonably be denied today. English used for government business is well over 60 countries and territories around the world. By international agreement, it is a primary language for all the air traffic control and maritime navigation. It is the uncontroversial choice of official language for almost all international academic conferences and increasingly the main language of higher education globally. The European Union is increasingly using it for the conducting the business, even though United Kingdom is no longer a member. The widespread use of enormous influence of English is not due to anyone having objectively judged it to be deserving. The unique status of language is just as a side effect of various mutually reinforcing historical trends. From the 18th and 19th century onwards, British exploration, missionary work, imperialism, colonial policy began to spread English around the world, and the whole North American continent ultimately adopted English as its dominant language, despite important early rivals like Spanish, French, and German. India's huge multilingual population recognized English as a subsidiary official language alongside Hindi for government business after independence. The 20th century, especially after the outcomes of the First and Second World Wars, saw an extraordinary growth in the economic powers of the USA and British Commonwealth. The growing importance of scientific research further strengthened the standings of English. It emerged as the language in which the majority of scientists publish their results. The economic importance of university education accentuated this effect. Many universities, complex consonants, and English spelling is notoriously chaotic. Anyone who naively expected bought, cough, doff, plow, rough, through, brow to have similar vowel sounds would be shocked to find that they all sound quite different and spelling gives no clues. Some sounds in English have more than a dozen different spellings. A language like the Finnish has no such orthographic disorder. Basic spelling can be learned in the few minutes. Learners of English need to memorize the form for about 200 irregular words. Notice the striking different pattern for the past tense formation in the bake, back to back, mm, break, broke, bring, brought, fall, fell, feel, felt, know, knew, have, had, make, made, sing, sang, took, take. And the syntactic complexities of language. English is an intricate auxiliary verb system, varied patterns of the verb preposition, pairing the profusions of the distinct main and subordinate clause, structures and details, principles to the orders will occupy the majority of this book. Structure of sentences, describing and advising structures of sentences, the investigation exercise over forms of lexeme, adjuncts, negations, Shall we end this here, or whether should we continue this talk? What we should do? The quick and green belt, student English grammar. Neither there is this content. Yeah, rediscover English grammar with the David Crystal. David Crystal. Let me check whether this book exists on the on on and whether the content is finding is visible there. Let me check because I'm again and again finding the same thing, and we are not finding that. What is this? What is a core? The basic elements of grammar have been dealt here with the definition, type, type of grammar, definition of grammar, origin, development of English grammar. Varieties of English, standard English, element of grammar, sentence element, part of speech, stative and dynamic, performance, questions and negations. Definition. What is a definition of grammar? All you know that from the basic structure you know of language. But apart from that, let me check whether the David Crystal book, what it deals with. David Crystal. David Crystal. Dictionary of Linguistic and Phonetics. Yes, there is a book by David Crystal, The Professional Crystal Report, Dictionaries of Linguistic, Cambridge Encyclopedia of English Language. Let it be. We should have such kind of books in handy that may give us some upper hand. Okay, Cambridge Encyclopedias. There is also in PDF format. Let it be. Dictionaries of Phonetics. English as a global language. Yes. Is English language is a global language? Language Death is also a book in 2009. Flower and David Crystal Dictionaries of Modern English Uses, Classic First Edition. That is in 2009. He wrote this book. Crystal Structure Analysis, Principal Practice, International Union of Text and Crystal Structure and Cambridge Encyclopedia of English Language. That is in 1929. He wrote that book. Language and Internet, Complex Structure of the English as a Global Language. He wrote in the 2003. Think of My Words, Exploring Shakespearean's Language. Crystal George. The Language Date, Language and Internet, Pronouncing Shakespeare. These are the books, some of these books which he had written. Yes, I have these books, and if I'm not wrong, what happened? We have different sources, and if we are finding those books in the different sources, we can um, also do some kind of justice on language. Is there really the varieties of English exist? If it exists, then I think that we will be able to do justice to those. What Crystal wrote exactly? They rediscover grammar. Is that book exist? Rediscover. Making sense. Does it make any sense? And if it doesn't make any sense, then why it is not making any sense for us? That is also important for us from some point of view. English in the New World, some current trend in translation theory. Language work, how babies babble, word change meaning, language lives a story of ye be were by you, making saying glamorous story of English language. How the baby babbles, these are the books which we are studying. Many people are maybe vetting fact finder, Cambridge fact finder. What happened? Fourth edition, updated, revised, expanded areas of novel core, and especially into track down information. Fact finder book is ever published, and if that is book published, then Betty Devlin, Tropes of Seven, Foundation of English Grammar, Foundation, Cambridge. Let us talk how English conversation dynamic damage and dictionaries of linguistics, global language, pronouncing, you say potato, field of guide of accent of potato, story of English, 100 words, complex. Okay, let us talk. Dictionaries of phonetics, finding the linguistic working with the AI, language revolution, elements, Shakespeare, of language companion. What do people call this? Hmm?
How do we talk and how do we able to As with the earlier title in this series on the spelling and punctuation, my aim in this talk is exactly what its title and subtitle suggest. To explain how the subject of grammar has evolved since the classical times to reach the position it is in today. Glamour in British, glamour in America. Not knowing grammar, student tells. I was giving a new intake of undergraduate their first lectures on English. It was early 1970, the years after the former teacher of grammar had disappeared from the school curriculums in UK, and I was about to experience one of the consequences. I had given this course several times. The main aim of my opening lecture was to make the student aware the contrast between the old ways of learning about the grammars they had experienced at the schools and the new approaches they would encounter at university. To do this, I would take an example of a rule I knew they would all have been taught. Never end a sentence with a preposition. Many older readers will recall having had that rule dine into them. I would explain that the rule came from the chapter 12. In my class, I simply illustrated what the rule did, and they would have been told that the first of the following two sentences was incorrect and the second was correct. This is the man I was talking to. This is the man to whom I was talking. I would then go on to show how sentences with the prepositions at the end have been used in English since the Anglo-Saxon time and give some example from Shakespeare and to be or not to be and fly to the others and I know not of and point out that the today's difference is one of the style. The second sentence is much more informal than the first. Both are acceptable in the standard English, but the first is more likely to be found in the informal speech, and the second is in the formal writing. Today's I would add that you don't see the second one is on Facebook. Anyway, on the J in the early 1970s, I was halfway through my usual explanations when I noticed that my audiences had begun to fidget more than usual. Some were whispering to each other. I stopped what I was saying and asked, "Is there a problem?" One student put her hand up and please, she said, "What is a preposition?" I was, as I used to say, Liverpool, gobsmacked. I had never been asked that question before. It had never occurred to me that someone now aged 18 could have gone through school without learning what is a preposition was. I asked the audience, how many of you don't know what a preposition is? Most put their hands up and I couldn't believe it. I think I know that, said another student. Thank goddess, goodness. I thought and asked her to continue. Then she said, is it something to do with getting on a horse? There is no single word in the Liverpudlian slang for greater degrees of the gospel. I think I croaked. How do you mean? Well, she said, I was always told that the preposition was what one had to adopt and preparing to mount. She announced the peer position as not knowing a grammar. Susie, aged 18 month, came rushing excitedly in the room, clutching her of every ready tears and stood.